Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live. We are, of course, broadcasting around the world Thursday, October 18, 2012, as we steadily approach the end of the year. We steadily approach the holidays. An important time of year for all of us. You know, the big major stories that I've been following, one happened today, Google's earnings release, revenue misses Wall Street forecasts. Google reported its quarterly earnings much earlier than expected today, and the results missed analyst expectations significantly. After the earnings announcement, the company shares, trading around $700, dropped about 8%, falling sharply. Its market cap shed about $19 billion. Google, of course, owns YouTube, I think is a big indicator for the global economy, but especially for the technology trade. Again, Google owns YouTube. They own all of this mass social media technology. So pretty interesting watching the shares today. Trading was halted shortly after the announcement at the company's request pending their news. The company initially recovered some losses after resuming trading. Following the earnings release surprise, which was to the downside, the company issued a statement blaming its financial printer for the early release. They said earlier this morning, R.R. Donnelley, the financial printer, informed us that they had filed our draft 8K earnings statement without authorization. We have ceased trading on NASDAQ while we work to finalize the document. Once it's finalized, we'll release our earnings, resume trading, and hold our earnings call as normal at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, according to a company spokesperson. Now, somebody from R.R. Donnelley said we are fully engaged in an investigation to determine how this event took place and are pursuing our first obligation, which is to serve our valued customer. Google posted third quarter earnings excluding items of $9 per share, down from $9.72 a share in the year earlier period. Google, which had been struggling to turn around a loss-making Motorola Mobility it bought for $12.5 billion, reported that its net income fell to $3 billion from $3.18 billion in the year-ago quarter. Quote from CEO Larry Page said, "We had a strong quarter," in a statement released a couple hours after the company's third quarter earnings were inadvertently released. Revenue increased 51% to $11.33 billion from $7.51 a year ago. In the release, the company said its average cost per click, I found this interesting, the company said its average cost per click declined 15% compared to the third quarter a year ago. So what they're talking about is the cost per click, that directly translates into Google's advertising revenue. There's a feeling that September wasn't a great month generally for our clients or for markets, not just advertising. That is some knock on to our industry, and this might be a little of that. Martin Sorrell, CEO of advertising company WPP, told CNBC in response to the disappointing Google earnings. Colin Gillis, an analyst at BCG, said the company's stock had been ripe for a pullback. Click prices declined for the fourth consecutive quarter after rising for 8 consecutive quarters before then. He says that's a negative. This is the mobile problem, according to Colin Gillis. Analysts had expected the company to report earnings excluding items of $10.65 a share on $11.86 billion in revenue, according to a consensus estimate from Thomson Reuters. Also, pretty interesting, on Thursday, the company revealed a $249 laptop that is built by Samsung Electronics and uses Google's Chrome operating system. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. They'll be selling the computer, the $249 laptop, on Amazon.com, as well as other websites and 50 Best Buy retail stores. Of course, Best Buy is also on its way out to bankruptcy as the traditional technology, one-stop shop is going out of business. And I find the Google release and the earnings release interesting because I really do believe in, I saw this coming years ago, obviously, and I think a lot of other people did as well, but a very big social media bubble forming. And I think we've just really honestly hit the nascent stages of it, although it's beginning to catch on. all of a sudden everybody wants to be a part of social media and the Facebooks and the YouTubes and, the Twitters, et cetera. But I do think just like any previous bubble that we've had in history, regardless of industry or what the product was, or the good was or the commodity was, will come to an end at some point, and there will be a reversion to the mean. When that happens within social media itself, I think we've got a little ways to go. But I think it's pretty interesting to follow, some of the direct earnings results coming from these behemoth companies that literally control the world. Google, obviously, it's one of the most powerful companies on the planet. And that's a pretty pristine but vulnerable position to be in. Also want to talk a little bit today about the FBI planted man. Of course, it's a Muhammad, like they always like to emphasize to us, and we're always propagandized. The FBI arrests a man for attempting to bomb New York Federal Reserve yesterday. I'm surprised we actually didn't get more coverage on this. There didn't seem to be a lot of reports. In fact, one of the only reports I saw within the social media and within social media itself was from Mark Dice. So, courtesy to him, thanks to him, we got some coverage on that yesterday. I've, of course, been following the story as well. According to Reuters, the FBI on Wednesday arrested a Bangladeshi man in a sting operation on charges he attempted to blow up the New York Federal Reserve Bank with what he believed was a 1,000-pound, 450-kilogram bomb, federal authorities said. Name, I'm sure I'm going to just completely train wreck it here, is Qazi Mohammed Rezwanal Ashan Nafis, 21 years old, faces charges of attempting to use a weapon of mass destruction and attempting to provide material support to al-Qaeda, the U.S. Department of Justice said in a statement. If convicted, he faces life in prison. Now, the FBI said the public was not in danger at any time because the explosives provided to this individual were never in working condition. They were, of course, provided by the FBI, and informants for the FBI were working with this individual all along, providing him the material for the bomb, etc. And the suspect was being closely monitored by these undercover agents. It says highlighting a script law enforcement has employed several times this year in similar cases. White House spokesman Jay Carney, Barack Obama's favorite spokesperson, said that he had been briefed about the arrest and says attempting to destroy a landmark building and kill or maim untold numbers of innocent bystanders is about as serious as the imagination can conjure. FBI acting assistant director in charge said the defendant faces appropriately severe consequences. Now, he's made an initial appearance in federal court in Brooklyn, where he wore a plain brown crewneck T-shirt, dark-colored jeans, and sneakers, barely spoke during the brief hearing, mumbling answers of yes. It kind of reminds me of the other killers, the red-haired Colorado Batman movie massacre killer. These people can never talk straight because they always appear to be under the influence of some kind of psychotropic medication that we know the United States government likes to dole out, not just to the general public. I mean, hey, how many people do you know are on psychotropic drugs? Of course, a lot of the time it leads to their death or suicide, or these people end up killing others. But, the entire, really our society, most of the society at least, is under the influence. If you're not under the influence of alcohol or pot or marijuana, you're on these psychotropic medications being doled out by big pharma, behind the scenes and in the name of the federal government. It says here that attempting to destroy a landmark building and kill or maim untold numbers of innocent bystanders, I just wanted to repeat this, is about as serious as the imagination can conjure. As serious as the imagination can conjure. Pretty interesting that it is the FBI, along with undercover agents that supposedly have this control in a controlled environment, had this under control with no risk to the American public at all times. And What I see here is really the obvious, which I think a lot of you see, and it's becoming such a tired playbook. Honestly, it's such a tired, old playbook at this point. It's almost to the level of boredom from the perspective of those that are truth seekers and from the perspective of those people like yourself tuning in, people like myself that are aware of just how corrupted and just how internally fraudulent and ridiculous the government is and how they operate, how they think from the inside. I mean, this is just another false flag terror attack to remind the American people. Of course, this was a foiled terror attack, like the underwear bomber, which was also planted by the FBI, was also conjured, I repeated that, but is also conjured by the United States federal government. And, it clearly is just another false flag event. And what I see, where I see and what I see and how I see the government using this is, some of the comments I even looked on our own channel when we put out our preview video said, it's about time. I'm surprised something hasn't happened sooner, Christopher, regarding the Federal Reserve Bank in New York or, maybe the Federal Reserve building in Washington, D.C., that we haven't seen more similar activity because, of course, this is the perfect scapegoat because who talks about the Federal Reserve all the time? Who talks about ending the Fed? Well, constitutionalists, people within the liberty and freedom movement, Ron Paul, advocates, activists, people like myself, people like you tuning in. So this is a very sexy scapegoat that the federal government, our president, our officials can use to scapegoat terrorism. And again, remind the American people that it's the homegrown terrorists that we need to be most fearful of. And it's a way to play the blame game. And now this individual looks like he's had ties with Al-Qaeda, at least this is according to the government. But the real fear and the real push behind the scenes is to criminalize, which they've already done very effectively, criminalize you and me. All of you tuning into the show right now, man, woman, I don't care if you're 17 years old, 20 years old, 45 years old, 60 years old, 90 years old, you are a criminal in the eyes of the federal government. You are enemy number one. Every freedom-loving, constitutionalist American that still believes in the basics of what this country and the fundamentals of what this country was founded on is a criminal and a terrorist in the eyes of our government, in the eyes of people like President Barack Obama, in the eyes of people like Mitt Romney. Again, Mitt Romney would have passed the NDAA. He said so himself. He said it many times during this campaign run here. I'm going to get into some of the polling numbers and, how I think this is being influenced by the establishment and the mainstream media. But both these presidents, but the establishment on a whole that they represent, view you as the enemy. You are kind of like the movie Enemy of the State. Now, it's another quote here. It says, attempting to destroy a landmark building and kill or maim untold number of innocent bystanders. Of course, Mary Galligan, she kind of goes on and on here. It says, an initial appearance, it's talking about the terrorist or the alleged terrorist. According to criminal complaint, this individual traveled to the United States in January 2012. So he got here earlier this year. Now, once in New York, he claimed to be in contact with Al-Qaeda members overseas, although federal agents found no evidence that he was working for Al-Qaeda or that he was directed by the organization, according to U.S. official who declined to be named. I found it interesting in the debates, the recent second presidential debate that was obviously weighted by the mediator as she was in agreement with President Barack Obama over the Benghazi terror attack, saying that he did call it a terrorist act. Read the transcript is what he said. Go get the transcript, like we're supposed to just believe a transcript. Like they couldn't just make up a transcript to say anything at once. Because from what I can remember, as that entire Benghazi disaster played out, which, ended with the death of innocent Americans, people like Christopher Stevens tragically being murdered, even though they had said that they were fearful of an attack. This is in their journal, and there had been warnings from other countries, from Libya itself, from countries like Egypt saying, U.S., beef up your security. But it just goes back to the narrative that Obama, the establishment, and the mainstream media is pitching to the people of America and to the people of the world. And it's so easy to mold. It is so easy to conjure. They use that, and I repeat it a few times. It's so easy to mold your mind. It's so easy, especially those that are just kind of going day to day. And, they're the ones, a good portion of them at least, on the psychotropic medications, people that don't need to be medicated at all, but have been convinced by the establishment and by their doctors and, by everybody that, you need to be out of your mind, literally at all times, to be in your mind. Like the foreign chemicals that they're impregnating and pushing into your DNA, into your body, is there's somehow a benefit there. And we saw also in the debate how President Barack Obama clearly hates the Second Amendment. He is the most anti-American, anti-constitutional president, anti-capitalist president that we have ever had in American history. He wants to get rid of our guns. He wants to take AK-47s out of the hands of innocent gun-owning Americans. I want to talk about that when we get back and take your calls. Everybody stay tuned. Green Wave Radio Live. Hey, world, we are back, broadcasting live all over the planet. This is Green Wave Radio, and of course, we are broadcasting through our syndicate, American Freedom Radio. They do a great job for us. Beautiful day here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're getting some great weather. We finally have gotten out of the heat of the summer. Before we left for the short commercial break, I was talking about the fact that our President Barack Obama, there has never been a president, there has never been a person in power that hates America like this guy, like our current president. It was interesting during the debate. In fact, this was put out. I picked up on this as well, and I got a few emails from subscribers. They say, Christopher, you should talk about this. And I also saw the video clip at realclearpolitics.com. If you want to take a look at it, they put it out earlier today. But there was a moment during the Hollywood production that is the sparring match we know to be the debates, the second presidential debate, where Obama referred to himself as president in the past tense. Let me repeat that. Our president, this person that clearly hates America, clearly hates capitalism, clearly hates the Second Amendment, hates the Constitution, was caught referring to himself in the past tense. Now, let's think about this and look into this a little bit. Of course, a week or two ago, I talked about the fact that during the first debate, it was almost as if Obama had already gotten a phone call from the power structure and from the establishment that said, hey, buddy, you're not our pick for 2012. You're done. You're finished. You had a good 4-year run destroying the country. Mission accomplished. Congratulations. It's exactly what we wanted you to do during the collapse and, pre the collapse of the petrodollar, so we can introduce, our new currency, and we can rob you, everyday John and Jane on the street, and the average Joe, and cripple you with massive debt and not address the $16 trillion and growing national debt and the, $1 trillion plus annual national deficit. But it seems as if we've gotten just a little bit more proof in the pudding with a slip up, although a small one, picked up by a lot of people, including myself and including a lot of you very astute people in our audience, noticed he was referring to himself in the past tense. Now, we also noticed during the debate that Obama gave a little bit more life this time. You know, the power structure must have told him, hey, you know, show a little bit more energy. You know, you can't just lie there like a, you know, soggy piece of wood or something. You know, you've got to at least pretend like you have a shot. It's interesting to me, and I find this very interesting. Of course, you know, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't predict the future, but I have said for some time, for over a year now, if you go back through our video archive, that I've really believed, just based on how I see the global geopolitical chess game being played out, that the next president of the United States and the pick of the establishment is in the name of Mitt Romney, our Republican candidate. And, you know, we'll see, I guess, how this plays out in the not too distant future. But what I find interesting is it seems almost everybody thinks it's going to be an Obama second term. You know, a lot of my fellow peers, in fact, we've got Fabian for Liberty coming on the show during the second hour. So it'll be great to have him on the program. He can weigh his 2 cents on what he's following, you know, in the news at the moment, what he thinks about this recent terror plot, this FBI staged congratulatory, you know, they always love to congratulate themselves for foiling their own plots that they created and manufactured in the first place. But so I think that Mitt Romney is the pick. I think he's the next president. And I guess how this ties in, and before I tie this into threats of assassination, this is very important. We're going to get to this in a minute. Before the break, I talked about how Obama is just the most anti-Second Amendment, anti-gun president, person, individual that we've ever had. And he talked a lot about getting rid of AK-47s, what he calls articles of war, you know, weapons that should only be in the hands of military personnel or the police state. And he wants to get it out of the streets. You know, he wants to get it out of the violent streets, his crony streets, his criminal gang-banger streets of Chicago and other cities like it throughout the United States of America. But here's the problem. Here's the issue. And every gun owner, every God-fearing, freedom, liberty loving, pickup truck driving, red-blooded American will tell you the reason why you don't want to see assault weapons taken from the little guy is because if the police state has assault weapons and they're using them against us, we are left unprotected. We are left completely naked with our you-know-what dangling in the wind. We need the same kind of firepower, and we need the same kind of defense as the, you know, weapons that, you know, very well could be turned against us. And, you know, we've seen this through history time and time again. You know, whether or not, you know, we saw the militias and, you know, how that won the first American Revolutionary War, or what I believe will lead and help to defend America in the second coming. And in the rapture of the Second Revolutionary War here in the great United States. Now, I mentioned before kind of getting into that diatribe that there have been many threats to assassinate Romney, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Now, of course, Obama has gotten countless threats through the years. In fact, there's a lot of very smart people that have predicted that Obama will, in fact, God forbid, it would be a horrible, terrible day for America. I would never wish anybody to be hurt. But there's a lot of very smart people that have predicted that President Barack Obama will be assassinated. That's just what a lot of people have talked about, a lot of people have predicted. But it's interesting that we're seeing a lot of this now swirling around Mitt Romney. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute, America, because if we were getting the same action if we were hearing the same Twitter feeds and all this commenting coming from the social media, which is legitimate assassination rhetoric, going and filtrating it way towards the beloved Obama, it would be mainstream headline, shake you to the core, completely divisive, right left headline, major story. It would have the biggest impact. But we're getting very little of this because I believe it's about Mitt Romney. It's not about President Barack Obama. Now, this was actually reported by Paul Joseph Watson, who, of course, is a part of the InfoWars team. He says that despite numerous media outlets attempting to downplay the issue, Twitter exploded last night following the debate with new threats from Obama supporters to assassinate Mitt Romney if he defeats Obama in the presidential race. Now, as was previously reported, in addition to threats by Obama supporters to riot if Romney wins, and I kind of laughed at this a little bit and did a video on it over the week, and not that I think riots are laughable, not that I don't think riots are coming to America, but honestly, riots are the least of our concerns. The big concern, and the thing that keeps me up the most at night is the war that's here, is the next great world conflict that is already here. And I got an email from a very smart 17-year-old. I won't mention his name over the air, but he sent me an email a few days ago, said, "Hey, Christopher, I just started tuning into your show. Over the past couple of months, I watch you. I listen to you every day. You're doing a great job." He says, "I've been studying a lot of history, World War I, World War II. I just can't believe how very little is reported on what's happening geopolitically today, things like sanctions, economic acts of war against Iran, the hyperinflation that the real is experiencing, all of this rhetoric and Israeli, Iranian, Western power conflict that is brewing." And he asked me the question, he said, "Christopher, when do you think that this will become? When do you think that the world war, call it World War III, call it a global conflict, call it a global war, put whatever name you want on it," but he said, "When do you think this will become mainstream public knowledge where the general public is going to identify it? Your average six-pack beer drinking, weekend Harley riding football fan. Not that there's anything wrong with a Harley or football. When are these people going to identify with, oh shit, we're at war? This is bigger than anything that we've ever seen, worse than anything we've ever had to live through. And when will America begin to experience that pain and have the recognition that this is what America is having to face and what the world is, having to address?" I really believe that this is going to settle in, and this is my humble opinion, but I really believe that this settles in within the psyche of the American people and the American public post the election results. Post what I believe to be a Romney win, a Mitt Romney victory. I believe once this settles in, it's just going to become a lot more apparent to the average John, Jane on the street what we're really facing. Back to the talk of assassination, and this would be something I would be even interested to hear your viewpoint on, and we've got the phone lines here. In fact, I'll let the producers know here to go ahead and open them up. I would like to start taking your calls as we approach the second hour here and bring Fabian for Liberty on to weigh in on this as well. But what are your thoughts? Is an Obama, as many people have said, a lot of people think President Barack Obama will be assassinated. God forbid. It's not something I'm encouraging in any way or anything like that. I think it'd be absolutely horrible, terrible. I'd never wish anything like that on anybody. But, what are your thoughts on that? Because I even hear this, and I don't think people talk about it as much publicly as they probably are. I think it's because they're not comfortable talking about it. But even among my own close personal relationships, my friends, my family, my acquaintances, colleagues, I mean, this is a topic we've been talking about for a while now, where honestly, as divided as the country is at the moment, as crazy as everything happens to be, the fact that literally the establishment through President Barack Obama has just driven a wedge, right down smack in between the middle of America. And you have all these angry people, bank bailouts into infinity, quantitative easing, the socialization of corporate America, special interest groups running wild, rampant fraud. Isn't it amazing? And honestly, just a little perplexing that we haven't seen something like this come to fruition, God forbid. I mean, we've seen this in history. We've seen the attempts, on people's lives, on presidents like Ronald Reagan, and horrible. And obviously the assassination of JFK, et cetera. Horrible. But now we're seeing it with Mitt Romney. And here's some of the Twitter quotes that I want to read you. And this is what the mainstream media isn't reporting on or talking about. This is from an individual who says, already planning my attack if Romney becomes president, like he's talking shit about the Middle East, SMH. Romney is going to get blown up. That's one. Posted 8 hours ago, according to when this article was posted. Here's another. I hate Romney. I'll personally assassinate him. I'm not even scared. Get at me, FBI. That's from a Twitter user. I can't pronounce their name. This is from CDB. Somebody got to assassinate Romney ass so he didn't try again after Obama's second term, or we doomed. This is from JMZ. Vote Obama as vice president. Let Romney win president. Then we assassinate him. Boom. Obama wins, and we don't have to worry about Romney anymore. This is from Caprice Classic with $2. That's an interesting username. Let Romney get in office. This is from a girl. Mother effa is going to assassinate the F out of him. So I don't know what we're just speaking mnemonics here or what it is. Here's another one. I be New York. I just used close to $200 worth of food stamps today. Romney, don't take that away. 70% of America will assassinate you. And I think this is kind of driving into the psychology. And then here's another one. This is from another woman. It says, did Romney really say he want to make sure women can go home to cook dinner? Laughing my ass off. I'm going to assassinate the F of him out of him. How many times just carry this gun? Christopher, some of this stuff just sounds a little overly dramatic. America's faced these challenges before. America's been and is at war now, but has been at war before. And, that's all true. We've experienced great challenges. In fact, America's been pretty darn resilient when we look at the picture. But the question that I want the American people to ask, and I want the people of the world to ask, are these wars just? Are these people in power that are guiding us, that are leading the masses, are these people with good intentions? Are they walking a path of truth, of light, of hope, of justice, of goodness? Because if there are people in power today leading us down a path that is not righteous, but that is pure evil, and that is positioning the United States of America and pushing the people of America to a place of tyranny and self-destruction, then we need to do something about it. We need to question our leadership, and we need to withdraw our support from not just the institutions that govern us and the government itself and, the banks and the too big to fails, but we really do need to change and alter our entire approach to living. And it starts with just making basic changes and rewarding goodness and righteousness and shunning and disparaging and trashing what is the opposite of that. I see we got a lot of people in the queue today. Let's go to some calls here. Phone lines are open. This says this is an anonymous caller, but I do see here, it looks like they're calling from the Hawaiian Islands. So aloha. You are on the air, Greenwave Radio Live. What's on your mind?
Hello, hi. My name is Arabian Sword. If you want me to say my full name, I could say at least my first name. My name is Ahmed. And I'm not from the United States of America. I bought this number from Skype at the moment.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So I get, aloha anyhow. Well, so tell me why you're calling today and what's on your mind.
What's on my mind is that, well, I've always been going on Pal Talk, and I've been telling all these American people on Pal Talk regarding what's going on in Bahrain, the American soldiers and the European soldiers going on in the Middle East. But none of them actually seem to care about. Like, for example, I'm from Bahrain, the Middle East. Salam alaikum first. And right now in Bahrain, everything is going haywire. There's a big division between Sunni and Shiite. There's so many American military bases. And the thing which is actually scares us the most, that every individual household right now can get a gun. And in Bahrain, it's illegal to have a gun only if you have a license. But the problem is, where are you getting these guns? And these guns are not Russian. The normal guns are AK-47s, but these guns are Desert Eagle. These guns are not Russian at all. They're not Asian. They're from the United States. And they're buying it under money. Basically, why are the households paying under money to get guns? Why are they doing this? What's going on? And everybody's talking about in Bahrain that a war is going to happen by the end of October or the beginning of November. Everybody's been talking about it. There's the real estate is down. Even a secret WhatsApp message came, and I swear to you that the United States embassies in the Middle East have warned their American citizens to leave the country, as well as the German embassy in the Middle East have warned their countries to leave the Middle East. And everybody has been talking about this. There's such a big catastrophe. There's a big divide between Sunni and Shiite. People are looking at it as an Iranian war or a religious war. There's an internal conflict. And now, everything is going haywire.
Do you think that the internal conflict has largely already started in your neck of the woods, in your country? And what's in the air right now? I mean, I know there's been tremendous destabilization of your country and others in the Middle East. What's your perspective of the United States' involvement and what's happening?
Well, it really actually depends. Right now, I'm going to go slow in Bahrain. Why is Bahrain such a very important aspect? As we all know, Bahrain is one of the most important for the United States of America's diplomacy, as the America's Fifth Fleet. As you know it, everybody knows it. But why is Bahrain one of the most important pivots? Iran says that Bahrain belongs to us, and it had long historical facts, while Bahrain a long time ago was independent by the British Empire that was colonized a long time ago. Now it's under American protection. But it still doesn't go to the main point. Why Bahrain is the main majority which is looked upon. One of the main reasons is to Shiite majority. The other majority is it is one of the main important of trade routes between the Strait of Hormuz. And the connection of it is all a family. It's a monarchy family. That the Kuwait family system and the Saudi Arabian family system and the Bahrain family system are all cousins. They are all cousins. If Bahrain gets affected, then Kuwait and Saudi Arabia does get affected. So there's a connection. It's like a triangle.
Yeah, there's a connection, and all of this is interrelated.
Yes. And there are still a lot of anger between the Shiite people that why is the Bahraini government hiring Pakistani people? Why is the Bahraini government hiring non-Arab people like Bahrainis instead of like non-Bahrainis? Because in their own jurisdiction is if they hired a non-Arab and they would use it in the military, they would show, hey, look, we're not Arabs hitting other Arabs. We're just doing it out of protection. It's a non-Arab that is hitting an Arab. So it's basically stabilization for a riot. That's how things are going on in Bahrain at the moment.
So what do you think happens from here? I mean, I see this, this boiling point. It's like a pot of water. It keeps getting hotter and hotter. And, we're in the process of the, presidential election, which really is just a charade. I mean, what do you see changing, if anything, in the near future in your part of the world? I mean, do you see war as an imminent threat? What's your perspective on that?
In my own opinion, if things don't work out very correctly, I'm just going to give it an indirect. I'm not going to say direct. I'm just going to give it indirect. These people who are on top, who are sitting on their chairs, will be in the same situation as, may he rest in peace, the Libyan leader, if they actually don't do anything about this now, because a war will 100% is going to happen, because as the situation with the Israeli Netanyahu said that there's a deadline with the nuclear building with Iran, and Bahrain is connected to Iran's nuclear power plant. The only difference, you could go there is from Bahrain to Iran by a boat is just 1 hour and 35 minutes by a boat. And it's stated, Iran is still saying that we're going to use this for nuclear power. Israel says no. Everybody's getting worried, and it's going to happen. The war is going to happen. Everybody's left their countries. They tried to sell their homes. They went to Emirates or Dubai. Most of the people in Bahrain who are Shiites left Bahrain and went to Dubai and Emirates, thinking it was safer for their own business, but it's not, because the Strait of Hormuz is connected. And if a war happens, and something bad happens, God forbid, with the nuclear power plants, then the shit will hit the fan. I'm sorry for swearing. And nobody will import any food. No one will export any food. The main target point is going to be in the Middle East, and America is going to get affected by oil. The same thing happened with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it's just it's amazing to hear the intensity of your voice, and it's really interesting, having you call in, from your respective country, because Americans, I mean, what you're telling me, it sounds like everybody knows what's going on. In your neck of the woods, people are fleeing. People see the war that I believe is already here, but they see these tensions escalating. I mean, you look at the average American. I mean, he's watching the boob tube. He's 50 pounds overweight, and he's got potato chips smeared all over his T-shirt with a few holes in it. So it's just amazing, hearing you call in today. And, I think people are waking up, but, this is coming to America. This is very scary. You mentioned Muammar Gaddafi as well. Rest in peace. People don't realize it. Muammar Gaddafi was one of the wealthiest people ever in the history of the world, adjusted for inflation. I think his net worth was something like $300 billion or something like that. It's just something enormous. And obviously the United States assassinated him, killed him. I guess they have their reasons of doing that, much of which, I would disagree with. I think Americans also forgetting about Syria at the moment, too. We've had an 18-month plus destabilization effort there. We could argue it's been a lot longer than that, but it's been, major news headlines. Bashar al-Assad, he's a target. I'm honestly surprised he's not in the ground, 6 feet under.
Well, regarding a very interesting point you said about Syria, I don't know if I could actually be saying this, but I'm not going to be actually saying my name, that in Syria, if you would want to go to the war, in Arabic you say jihad,
Well, I tell you what, hold that thought, because I've got quite a few people in the queue, but I have to go to a break. I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes when we come back after the commercial to get your last thought across. I'm Christopher Green, Green Wave Radio Live. Stay tuned, everybody.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You now entering the Daily Wave, hosted by Mr. Christopher Green himself. On me, I'm just a fellow truth speaker. I go by the name of Doctrine. Welcome to the Daily Wave, starring Christopher Green, alternative media king, preaching truth on the screen.
Green Wave Radio Live, broadcasting around the world. We're taking your calls and we're bringing on Fabian for Liberty in just a quick moment. But before I do that, we did have a caller giving us a little information out of Bahrain. So it's pretty rare we get a call from there. It sounded like he wanted to finish comment here. Let me unmute him. Are you still there, my friend?
Yes.
Okay, so it sounded like you wanted to finish a thought, and I told you I'd let you do that. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention regarding one small point about Syria, since you said something about Syria, and regarding about how actually people who want to actually join the Freedom Syrian Fighters, there is two concepts to it. One, if you go there, you're not going to come back alive. So there's a special center that actually pays you for your family if you're married or not, and you have to actually go to the borderline in Jordan or go to Turkey and then get trained, and then you have to go to Syria if you want to join the war. And these types of recruits have been going up all over the Middle East, been going on.
And so that's pretty interesting. So this is being recruited for the Free Syrian Army, the opposition of Bashar al-Assad. Is that correct?
Well, yes, on quotations. Basically, there's special people that would actually come to you randomly looking for young age people, and they would say, hey, would you like to join the Freedom Fighters? And they would actually pay you, or if you go to your family, they pay you, but it's just a one-way. You can't go back.
So it's a one-way ticket. And what would you say the average age is, of these fighters being sent over to these places?
Well, it depends. If the person who is not finishing school, it could be between 16 years old, between 18 years old. The 16 years old is in Syria. The 17, 18, you could find it between ages of 20 to even 35.
Okay. And so it's a one-way ticket, and they're being paid, to fight. What does that look like? I mean, how much are these people being paid? Is it a significant amount? Is it, chump change?
It is. There was one video that was uploaded in YouTube, and that person actually told me about this. And basically, there was a father that would actually put his two sons on a wage, and everybody would pay a wage, like more than 20,000, more than 40,000, it goes to 60,000 just as a suicide bomber. And basically, all that money would be as a farewell gift, or as like a jihad money. It was like a holy war. They would look at it. And I don't know if this video is still there on YouTube or not, but there was many cases that happened like this. Basically, people will look at the ideology. You go to war, you're doing something good to God. You're doing this. It's like a holy war. It's all over the place. It's like the good guys fighting the bad guys. They're just looking at A, but they don't look at B. They don't look at the whole story. That's it.
So what's your thought? I mean, what's your opinion? These kids, 16, 18-year-olds on a one-way ticket, being paid. You said some of them are suicide bombers. I mean, is this a just cause? Is Bashar al-Assad, does he need to be forced from power? What's your viewpoint on the revolution that's taking place in Syria?
Regarding about the war, that I don't agree with war. I dislike war. I want peace all over the world. But if Syria wanted to reform a long time ago, it should. But now it was a bit late, and basically, let's say the West took the advantage of this situation and used it as a just cause. But then things are getting extremely bad. Like right now in Syria, people couldn't find jobs. And if people want to go work in Turkey or live in a specific place in Jordan or in Lebanon, the family don't have money. The owner of the apartment will say, hey, if you don't have money, then I would have sex with your daughters as a free payment charge. And that is used as an adultery, and that is completely bad. When you look at the war in 2003, when the Iraq war, Saddam Hussein, after he got killed, most of the Iraqi women or families went to Syria to live there, and most of them don't even have jobs and education, and they were prostituting themselves. They would go to a cabaret, and most of these young ladies were like 16 years old or 17 years old, and they were selling their bodies. And now this situation has increased even more after the bombing of Syria. Now, Syria is gone. Aleppo is gone. It is dangerous. It's like the wild, wild west. You go there, you are lucky to be coming out alive. It's like saying in Arabic, Allah ma'ak.
And so these women have no options, so they're prostituting themselves. So where are these? Where are the women of Syria fleeing to? What neighboring countries? Where are these refugees headed?
The refugees I heard from my family friends in Jordan. There was a special place in Jordan from the UN, and there was a special UN nations or the Red Cross in Jordan that most of the Syrian people who are in Jordan, they living there, but they don't have enough food to support themselves because Jordan is not a wealthy oil state country. It is not. It's not like the Gulf-rich state countries. And there's bound a lot to see a lot of beggars or poor people asking for money and donations, knocking on people's doors in Jordan. And the situation was so hard living in Jordan that they say, you know what? I'd rather live in my own country in Syria, even though I know I'm going to be killed, but I have to go back. Some of them stayed in Jordan, some of them didn't. Some of them went to Lebanon, and some of them went back to Syria. And some of them tried to go to Turkey. It all depends. It all depends on the wealth you go with you.
Yeah, and these are just things. I really appreciate your call today. I'm gonna have to let you go, but maybe give us a call in the future because it's really great to get another perspective, somebody in the Middle East. But it's amazing to me because these people just don't. I guess Americans in general. I mean, this is stuff that a lot of people just can't even comprehend. What's happening in other parts of the world, and we just go about our daily lives and we really just don't pay attention to what's happening in the rest of the world, what's happening in the Middle East. Thanks again for that call. Fabian, I believe you're with us, or your producer said they've got you patched in here.
I am. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well there. So, Fabian, you probably listened to a few minutes there. We're getting a lot of great phone calls, a lot of people in the queue today. We were talking to a gentleman, I believe he said his name was Ahmed from Bahrain, telling us about just all these young kids, 16, 18 years old, on one-way tickets to fight for the free Syrian army. I always think it's funny. It reminds me, how America pitched the Iraq war. It was Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then I forget they changed the name to something else right after that because obviously things weren't working out. It has nothing to do with freedom or liberalizing the Middle East at all. What kinds of things are you following in today's news?
Well, I would just say that regarding that was a very interesting call to get that type of perspective, because we get it filtered through the mainstream media and the political candidates that how funny both of them are really in agreement that they want to basically fund these Al-Qaeda rebels. And it's interesting because, as we've said before, here at home, and just the other day, I think, or earlier this week, about 20% of Americans actually keep up with current events or read newspapers, and so they really don't know that the U.S. is funding Al-Qaeda in Syria and in Libya, and that the candidates are both on board to do that. Now, are there people in that mix that genuinely want some form of freedom? Yes, but I would say, does that freedom really mirror anything that America's used to? And is it really helping or hurting America? And really the area over there as well, whether you're advancing true democratic principles. I think, that story is yet to be seen what the outcome will be. Egypt certainly has been a complete failure. There's no democracy there whatsoever. I mean, what little democracy there is quickly being silenced. So it's just interesting to see that all unfold. I think there's kind of a greater plan to all of this personally, Christopher. I mean, like I talked about before, when we have a dollar reset, I think it's going to be based on it's going to go down at the same time there's some kind of big war, and all this is leading us towards that bigger war.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and I think you'd probably agree with me, Fabian. I mean, I just want the truth, and I've never argued that people like Muammar Gaddafi or Bashar al-Assad or these people. I never said that they weren't dictators. That these are necessarily good people that we want to support. But it really just goes back to questioning the motives and getting at the truth. What is America doing in the Middle East? What is the mission? What are we trying to accomplish? What are the objectives? What is the motivation behind the destabilization of this part of the world? And it's very rare that we get the alternative perspective. Just people on the street, like the gentleman that just called, telling us what is going on, in his part of the world from his eyes. And I think that's all that the American people want, is at least the ones paying attention, people like myself and like yourself, is we just want the truth. I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. I want to make sure that our leadership is a just, moral leadership and has some kind of moral compass, which I believe has been lost in America today. What are your thoughts about the recent FBI terror bomb plot? Supposedly there was a gentleman targeting the New York Federal Reserve. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, because I remember a while, not too long ago, I had a great talk with a gentleman by the name of Woody O'Brien, and you may have heard of him. He's a great economist and would be a great guest for your show. And he was telling me that, he was like, Fabian, and I think you and I, Christopher, have talked about this as well. He's like, Fabian, I really see a time when they're going to go blow up a Federal Reserve building and blame it on the Liberty Movement, where you have some, let's say, older, disgruntled guy that basically has a truck bomb, drives it into the New York Fed or some other Fed office. And that's the first thing that I thought when I saw this. I thought, wow, are they going after the so-called extremist right-wing element in America? But then it turns out it's another one of these kind of patsy Al-Qaeda guys, which really are disgruntled immigrants that come here, which is a whole other story. Why are we even letting these people in our country? But we do let them in our country, and then we radicalize them. I mean, basically, the FBI finds these guys and radicalizes them. I mean, many times they're losers, loners, not necessarily prone to violence, but I mean, you get any dumbed down person and start talking to them, and you're any way persuasive, yeah, you're probably going to be able to talk that guy into, why the Federal Reserve's the problem. So, I just see, Christopher, these events kind of gaining momentum, and you see how many of them have been thwarted, but all they need is for one to go down. And I think the American people should really be saying, why is the FBI giving these people, although the bombs may be fake at times, sometimes they're not, but why are they even doing this? It's really beyond me.
Yeah, it's and what's interesting about it and perplexing. I mean, I guess it's not perplexing because it makes sense. But the FBI, is patting themselves on the back, like, "Hey, look at us! We just stopped another major terrorist attack from Al Qaeda." Team America, F yeah, it reminds me of the movie. And it really is bizarre. It just makes you wonder if the individuals supposedly being arrested, if they're just not in on the whole thing, and they're not just an FBI, informant themselves that is going to be, I don't know, put into the. I'm losing what the name of that program is, but all the old gangsters, if they turn on each other, what's it called? Maybe you could help me out here, Fabian. But they send you out somewhere in the country where nobody can find you, and they witness protection program.
Yeah, right.
But it's almost like something like that. I was talking before you got on the show, and this is a scary topic. You know, people don't always like to talk about it, but I'm noticing it kind of pick up just within just conversations. You know, I'm hearing people around me, friends, colleagues, talk about this, and there's been an increase in rhetoric that I've noticed around the threat of assassination. Specifically, there's a lot of people talking about the threat against Republican Mitt Romney, and the reason it's been talked about and been mentioned, mostly in the alternative media, is there was a ton of Twitter feeds, Facebook comments from all kinds of people around the country saying flat out, if Mitt Romney gets elected, takes away our social programs, welfare, unemployment benefits, etc., that they're going to kill him. And this is what these people are saying. I'm not saying that. Of course, we'd never wish anything like that to any president, regardless of what their politics are, or any person for that matter. But what's your thought around this? I mean, is this something that could be a realistic possibility, or do you think the fear is overblown?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think that any of these people that are out there, look, Twitter allows any idiot to basically now have an opinion and do it in a way where they can not have to disclose really who they are. I don't think really Romney's life is in danger. I agree with you. I mean, regardless of what the policies are, none of us would ever want something to happen to any of these people. I mean, the worst thing that could possibly happen would be the president being assassinated. That would be the worst possible thing ever, just because of the repercussions that would flow from it, and so many other things. But I mean, I think that what it really does show is just how our society is so unhinged. That's the real big thing, because when you see people rioting over a pair of shoes, sporting events, a Section 8 voucher, you just get the impression that, you know what, the society is just, it's like, the match has been lit. If there's any event, anytime, I mean, they're going to be pissed. And look, the welfare has increased under Obama's term, 37%, I believe the statistics were. Over $1 trillion, more money being spent on food stamps in the war in Afghanistan. And people are being hooked on these entitlements. And it's not going to be easy to take those entitlements away. I find it very troubling. I think that it's the whole bread and circus philosophy of government.
Yeah, and I want you to play that scenario out with me a little bit when we get back. Because I agree with you. That'd be the worst thing that could happen to the country in this point in history. But I want to talk about a little bit more when we get back with Fabian for Liberty. Also, we'll go to a few of your calls. Everybody stay tuned. Green Wave Radio Live. We are back. I am Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live. I want to welcome everybody to the program, to the live show today. We got quite a few of you in the chat, a lot of new faces. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. It's funny, I'm reading through some of the comments, and this is from the preview video I posted before the show today. Someone says, "No way, people want to bomb the USA? No way, really? Wonder why, LOL." And then this is from another individual, says, "What evidence is there that it was planted by the FBI?" Referring to the individual that was just arrested. Well, the evidence was from the FBI. Was it not, Fabian? It was the FBI and their informants that provided the materials and the bomb-making equipment so that he could potentially detonate this thing in front of the Federal Reserve Building in New York. So it's pretty amazing. We've seen this a lot. The other recent example was the underwear bomber and that foiled plot that the FBI wanted to pat itself on the back with. We were talking about the intensification. We've been talking about the intensification of assassination rhetoric as it relates to Mitt Romney. And there are a lot of tweets. A lot of this has been coming out in the Twitter feeds, especially around and during the presidential debates. We saw this during the second presidential debate, which was a pretty heated match. Obama was showing a lot more signs of life. I wanted you to play out the scenario a little bit with me, Fabian, because I agree with you that it would be probably the worst thing that I could think of to happen to America if, God forbid, just hypothetically, let's say our president, Barack Obama, was in fact assassinated. And again, never wish this on anybody. You know, this is irregardless of politics and not liking someone's politics. But if that were to happen, what do you think would happen to America? I mean, if we woke up tomorrow and, you know, that was what we were dealing with, what do you think would unfold from there?
Well, not only would we have even somebody worse in office than Joe Biden, but I think you'd have a pretty big segment of the population believe that he was murdered or believe that he was killed, and it would become a very divisive issue. You know, after JFK was assassinated, people were pretty much in shock, and even back then, a lot of people knew that he had been taken up by the CIA. A lot of people had different reasons why he thought he was killed. So I think you'd see a lot of radicals and just people in general say, look, we think that he was killed, and would go as far as to think that Romney would do it, or, you know, his people or the Republicans. You know, as divided as this country is, you know, during times of crisis after 9/11, regardless of what people believe about the official narrative, Americans came together. I don't see us as the same country 10, 11 years later. So I think it would be, I mean, it could be another Rodney King type situation as well, like in the LA riots, where you have a lot of people, you know, saying, hey, they just murdered the first black president, and they'd want to enact revenge on what they feel might be the white ruling class. I think we've come to a point where there's that much division in this country.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny, I was, you know, writing down just a few words as you were speaking, and you literally just mimicked what I was putting, you know, pen to paper. The first two words was race war. You know, I guarantee it would be talked about as a racially motivated event. So it'd be all about race. I'd expect a full-blown race war in America. You know, so that would probably come. Yeah, I'd almost guarantee it. I think shock would probably be, you know, the first collective response that Americans would have, followed by anger. And I think that this would be, you know, perpetrated by the mainstream media and by a lot of political leaders, even religious leaders, a lot of people, again, pushing the whole idea that it was racially motivated, black versus white, you know, the first African-American president, you know, shot and killed, followed by revenge, which you mimicked word for word, would be what the American...
Yeah, I would just add quickly, too, that, you know, just on your point, is that most times, if there is that racial war, I mean, you know, if the person was white, let's say, that would immediately erupt in some kind of racial conflict. Just look at the Trayvon Martin, where you had people calling for George Zimmerman to literally trying to kill wanted posters dead or alive for Zimmerman. So absolutely, we would have that level of a race war component intertwined in all of this. There's no doubt in my mind.
And I find it, you know, and I think what we're saying is exactly how it would play out, at least to a certain extent. But I find it just so incredibly disingenuous and disheartening that is how predictable the response would be from the American public and American people. Because let's for a minute trade places and say it's Mitt Romney. And, you know, let's say Mitt Romney was the current president. And, you know, Obama's out of the picture. Let's say he was hypothetically assassinated. Would that be considered a race issue, a racially motivated assassination?
Never. I mean, absolutely never would it be. It wouldn't even really, by no means, would that be considered. I mean, reverse racism is never an issue, and it's very predominant. I mean, from whites going into college to, I mean, so no, absolutely it would be a completely different story. You had earlier debates and the commission on.
Fabian, can you still hear us? I don't know if you're just coming in and out on my end or if it's our feed. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay. Well, I think we kind of lost you with some of.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So total double standard. If it was reversed and, it was Mitt Romney that was president and he was assassinated, wouldn't it be considered a racially motivated event at all? Which I just find, I think is exactly how it'd play out, totally disingenuous and just disheartening for me personally. I think a lot of Americans that's how predictable the American response would be from the people. We lost you a little bit there in the feed, but please continue on your commentary.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Christopher, that reverse racism exists significantly in America today, and unfortunately, the powers that be use race as such a divisive tool to separate us and not have us focus on the real issues. And, you just take a look at these so-called debates where they've been covering topics that really, again, no real economic issues are covered. No real foreign policies are covered. And then you look at who's running the debate, this Commission on Presidential Debates. I don't know if you've had a time to look into that, but I'm posting a video about it today. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about on the program with you. But, look, there's no question going into this election, in my opinion, America is as divided as it ever has been. I've been saying for some time that a close election or a repeat of 2000 is one of the worst things that could possibly happen. I don't personally think we get through that without massive civil unrest and some real, I can really see the radicals that support Obama advising him not to stand down and concede to Romney over winning 200 votes. You look at someone like Stuart Smalley, who won in Minnesota and literally lost the election, and because he was down, lost the election by 600, 700 votes. After the recount, he won by 200 and something votes. It was pretty crazy. Christopher, God help us if we go through something like that.
Yeah, and there's a reason why we're talking about this today, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning it. We're talking about the, very real threat of assassination, and the reason is because, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I actually think that the establishment has a motive to kill President Barack Obama for all the reasons we just described, because it would really be the worst thing that could possibly happen to the country at this given point in history, at a time in American history where we're just so incredibly divided, and there's so much anger, and there's so much hate. And every day we're reading about the newest foiled FBI, stopped, planted bomb threat, just like what we read yesterday at the New York Federal Reserve. It would not surprise me. And again, I really think that there is motive. It would not surprise me if something like that happened in conjunction with an extremely close election and a lot of angry people. Let's say President Barack Obama gets reelected, but it is just by a gnat's hair. And then we get all these reports out, which I'm sure we've already started to read a little bit about this, but just the voter fraud, how the election's rigged. We already know this stuff to be true anyways, but imagine if that was amplified. I could very well see somebody getting hurt. And, of course, I would never want to see that. It'd be literally the worst thing that could happen to the country, but it could be just the thing that the establishment wants.
Yeah, no, Christopher, you know what? You just scripted exactly what I think is exactly going to happen. That's exactly what I think is going to happen.
Scary.
Yeah, and if you want to take it even a step back further, or even, think about it a little bit more in this way, that think about all the enemies America has. Ahmadinejad, who, regardless of whether or not you believe Iran's a threat or not, I think the threat's totally overblown, but he came out the other day basically saying, look, the West is illegitimate. They got $16 trillion in debt. They've lost all kinds of influence on the world stage. So just look around the world. The enemies of America, or should I say the the enemies that want America to fail, want America to falter, what a perfect opportunity for them. I mean, they know that America's divided. They know that electronic voting machine, going awry, voting fraud in some way. I mean, look, the system's already rigged, but let's just go along with the narrative that it's not. That somehow, there was massive voter fraud, and like you said, this, being played out in the media, specifically by talk radio, Fox News, would be really the only people truly exposing the voter fraud. I think I see people. I think you begin to see people saying Obama's an illegitimate president. I mean, you go down a real dangerous path, and I really see that playing out. I mean, I think, in fact, not only do I see that playing out, Christopher, I see people wanting that to happen. The powers to be wanting that kind of event to take place.
Yeah, and I see that too, and obviously that's something that I don't want to happen. It's just that I fear it, and I also think it's why it's important that it's talked about as much as possible, just in case something like that does in fact happen, because it's very predictable. And just like we both talked about Breitbart, I mean, that's kind of another story we haven't talked about in a while, but what was clear with Andrew Breitbart to me, and I know you talked a lot about it as well, is that there was motive. There was motive to get rid of him. And I could see a similar type event, playing out for President Barack Obama. And I hate to say that. Again, I find it extremely scary, and that's something that just personally I would fear. I'd fear for America. I do fear for America. And I would even fear for the president, in that case. You said that you were you posting a video today. Get into that and in the content you're reporting on. Yeah,
the Commission on Presidential Debates. I don't know if you've had time to look into this, but it's it's another shadowy organization, somewhat like the Fed, in that it's although the Fed's privately owned, this is basically the same thing. It's all corporate funded. I went over the list. I mean, going back since 1988 when it was started, it used to be the League on Women Voters who did these debates. And really, aside from the Nixon-Kennedy debate, after that, Nixon didn't want to debate. And many times these politicians don't want to debate, because look at what happened with Obama. I mean, Obama was leading in every major poll. He has this really dreadful debate with Romney, and then basically now Romney's coming out ahead. So the Commission on Presidential Debates, that, by the way, does not allow any third party whatsoever to debate in the platform, because it's bipartisan. It's made up of only Republicans and Democrats. And the people that shovel money into this commission are the big multinational corporations that have bought and paid our government and that own the government. And so it's just kind of it speaks to the heart of what trouble we're in. I mean, you can't even have a debate where the real issues are talked about. I mean, again, an economic debate, Christopher, where they don't mention derivatives, the repudiation of the dollar and world trade, and Bernanke, QE, Federal Reserve, student debt bubbles. None of that is even talked about when those are the very economic issues that are affecting America. And now you know why. I mean, they have these pageantry type debates, but the reality is that they're all planned, and it's just another attempt of really a coup of our constitutional republic.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, I mean, she was arrested a few days ago, and she was out protesting in front of the debates. And not only can we not get a third-party candidate to these events and debates, but they're not allowing the alternative media in. In fact, I've never put it out on the air, but we got routed and denied at all 4 presidential debates, which we did apply for and would have been there representing AMTV. But they don't want real coverage. They don't want real news. Very disconcerting. We'll be right back. Buddy, we are back. I am Christopher Green. This is Green Wave Radio Live. We're having a fantastic show today. And you heard it here first, America. We just had a very scary conversation with, Fabian for Liberty, talking about how I really believe that there is motivation coming from the establishment that controls the puppets that we call our presidents, that there is very real motive to get rid and, God forbid, assassinate President Barack Obama at this extremely vulnerable period of time in American history, a time of extreme anger, frustration, and at a time where the nation really is just completely and utterly divided. That's actually one thing I think that the Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan campaign has right. And, we've heard that as part of their platform. And anyways, I don't want to dig too far into it, although I will probably do a follow-up video on it, and I'd like to hear your comments. But please share this archive show. I feel that today's show is one of the more important ones I've actually ever put out. So please share it and share the follow-up video I'm going to do commenting on some of these topics when we close out the show today. I'm going to go to our caller line for the remainder of the program today. We had a lot of you in the queue, so I'm just looking at our producers here. I'm going to open up the phone lines again. Just to remind you, phone number 218-339-8525, 218-339-8525. We've got quite a few of you in the queue. Let's go to our patient caller. This is a 772, one of them at least, 772 area code. Hi, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
How's it going, Chris?
Oh, it's going pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty well. I just want to say thank you for doing what you do. Fabian for Liberty as well. I don't know if he's still listening. If you are, Fabian, you do great work too, and I thank both of you for doing what you do. So I just had a question. My question is a little taboo. People don't like talking about it, but I feel it's something that needs to be at least addressed. Seeing the reality that we face today in the United States, Obama wants to do the quote-unquote assault rifle ban again, even though they're not assault rifles, but that's another show entirely, But and DHS buying all this ammunition, and it looks like the system is really just beginning to crack down on the citizenry with the TSA everywhere. And I wonder, I just wanted your opinion on, do you think there will ever become a time that where it becomes prudent to fight back physically? And I don't like war. Like, that's the last thing I'd want. War is terrible. People die. Innocent people die. But I just can't help think, would we even live in America, or would this be like another British territory if someone had stopped George Washington and his troops before the Battle of Valley Forge and told them, look, let's just occupy Valley Forge, let's fight an info war, let's tell people about it, and they had actually just stopped what they were doing and went that route, would we even be in America? So that was basically my question. I just wanted to hear your opinion on, do you think there will ever come a time where we need to fight back?
The simple answer to that is yes. I don't promote violence or anything like that in any way, but yeah, just look at history. I mean, there's a historical precedent for it. So I'd almost say it's not really an opinion or necessarily my personal opinion. It's just a fact. Yes, there will come a time when America will have to bear arms again. And I think, a lot of Americans very much feel that we already are in occupied territory, that, this is a foreign invasion already, in our towns, in our cities, at our schools, et cetera. So, what scares me is when I hear people like our president attack the Second Amendment and other, politicians when they say things like they need to get AK-47s and those types of assault weapons out of the hands of the American people. That is the completely wrong approach. I mean, the reason the American people need the same arms and capability as the military has is in case we ever have to use it to protect ourselves. I mean, if the police state has AK-47s, we should have AK-47s. The American people should. It's another reason why the fact that, we have a vibrant, we have vibrant militias throughout the country. Those things make me feel more comfortable as an American. The fact that there's people, there's groups, there's communities like that we're going to need them at some point. So I think there's a historical precedent for it. I don't necessarily have a timeline, when that could potentially happen. But, yeah, it's a reason why I support the Second Amendment and I support the right to gun ownership.
That's what I get a lot with, people I talk to, my family, my brother especially. He's gay, right? So because he's gay and Obama likes gay people, he is just totally comfortable with throwing the rest of the country under the bus just because, like, he has that issue with Obama in common, and when I try to speak to people about this, and I told him, well, what about the quote unquote assault rifle ban? He's like, well, I kind of agree with him. Unless you're in the Army, you don't need to have that kind of weapon. And virtually everyone I speak to always says, why do you need it? And, it's not really that I need it, but I try to explain to these people that our Second Amendment is not for, sport shooting. It's not for hunting. It is a last line of defense against a tyrannical government that seeks to oppress you. And, would you think if they actually try to do that, do you think that would be a signal for a time to fight back? And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't want to put you on the spot, answering something like that, and then someone, says, well, Chris told me to do it, because, I'm just asking for an opinion.
I don't promote violence or anything like that. Right. I'm just giving an opinion, sure. And I think there's a historical precedent for it. I think it would make a lot of Americans very nervous. I mean, they start getting rid of assault weapons and taking it out of the hands of the American people. Where does it stop? Honestly, they start banning knives, and it doesn't make any sense. I think it would really scare a lot of people. And, I think it would set a precedent where it probably move things further along, where unfortunately there would be, probably radical groups and those that maybe weren't of sound minds that, sure. That's scary too. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like you said, it's hopefully it never has to come to something like that. It never has to be used. But America was built on the foundation of checks and balances. If we can't check the government, and the government knows we can't defend ourselves anymore, we're in a very dangerous situation. So we've seen Obama; he's trying to push the UN arms or the disarmament treaty through the United
sure.
Nations. He's been very vocal about it. This is a clear attack on the Second Amendment. It's an attack on the Constitution. Pretty much everything Obama, is put into practice during his 4 years is an attack on America. I don't see any other way that I can sugarcoat it. Again, it's why I support, I call myself, and I am a constitutionalist, and I support the Second Amendment.
Right. That's why I don't understand the rest of the country, why they're so apathetic. I know they have to see this. Just forget about all the TSA and, all the bullets they're buying. Obama paid China to take GM. GM, the new Cadillac, I think it's the STX 2013, is going to be a Chinese vehicle, they are obviously dismantling our manufacturing base, bit by bit. If you remember a while back, they told Gibson Guitar that they either had to outsource their production of certain guitars because of the wood they were using to Africa, or close their doors. And I just don't understand the apathy of the American people, how they could just sit here. And I understand a lot of people don't really think it's real until it's coming through their front door, or one day they turn the TV on and they get, white noise and static on their screen, or their cell phone doesn't turn on. But, these people must understand, anyone that's listening that's kind of on the fence, by the time that happens, it's going to be too late. It's literally going to be coming through your door.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why we put into place why we have a constitution. There's a reason for it.
But we don't even anymore. Obama, the NDAA virtually repealed the first, at least 4 amendments. Minus the Second Amendment, of course. But
yeah, well, anybody that goes after the Second Amendment, I just like to remind them it's the Second Amendment. You've got the First Amendment and then the Second Amendment. is the right to bear arms. That's how important it was to our founding fathers and how important it is to America, our right to self-defense and our very stability. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think that a lot of America is very detached. And, as we get all kinds of great callers from around the world. And, we heard from somebody from the Middle East today. And it's interesting. These are perspectives you would never get in your, suburb or, a regular suburb in America. So people, I just don't think a lot of this will resonate until there was, unfortunately, a problem. And it's exactly why we need to do everything to protect ourselves, our country, our family, and, protect what our founding fathers put in place for us. And anybody, any enemy, foreign or domestic, that threatens that is an enemy of the United States. And, we need to remind ourselves of that. Great show, everybody. I hear the cue music coming in. I want to thank everybody for joining us. All the great calls, all the great questions. We'll get this archive up soon. Please share it to everybody that you can. God bless. I'm Christopher Green. As always, hard-hitting and in your face.